wrestle with thoughts that aren't real? Exploring Buddhist insights. Welcome. Have you ever found yourself wrestling with thoughts that don't seem to align with reality? In today's world, where mental health is more important than ever, I want to explore how Buddhism can offer us valuable insights on this common struggle. Together, we'll dive deep into the nature of our thoughts, how to recognize the ones that aren't real, and how we can transform them for our well-being. The challenge we all face: it's easy to get lost in our thoughts, especially the negative ones. We all know that feeling when our minds start spinning with worries, doubts, or even memories of past mistakes. But have you ever wondered if all of these thoughts are actually true? What if I told you that not all thoughts reflect reality? Let's break down how we can start seeing our thoughts for what they are: passing mental events that don't define us. Section 1. The nature of thoughts. Are they real or not? 1.1 The illusion of thought. In Buddhism, one of the core teachings is the impermanent nature of thoughts. They are not fixed or permanent. They are like clouds drifting across the vast sky, appearing and then fading away. This analogy emphasizes that thoughts are transient. They come and go, often without us even realizing their fleeting nature. However, the challenge comes when we mistakenly believe that because we are thinking something, it must be true. We tend to attach ourselves to thoughts, investing emotional energy into them and letting them shape our perception of reality. For instance, when negative thoughts arise, such as fears about the future or regrets about past mistakes, we may start to define ourselves by these thoughts. We might tell ourselves, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never succeed." But are these thoughts a true reflection of who we are? Buddhism teaches us to recognize that our thoughts do not define us. Just because a thought arises does not mean it is real or even true. It's simply a mental event, like any other passing moment. The illusion comes when we believe these thoughts are facts, as though they are concrete and unchangeable. In reality, our thoughts are influenced by many factors: emotions, past experiences, and external conditions, but they are not an absolute truth. By understanding the impermanent nature of our thoughts, we can begin to detach from them, reducing their power over us. 1.2 The power of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a central practice in Buddhism that helps us cultivate awareness of our thoughts without getting caught up in them. It's a way of observing our mental processes without judgment, allowing us to simply witness what arises in our minds. Mindfulness enables us to create a space between our thoughts and our identity, helping us recognize that we are not our thoughts. We are the observer, the one who notices them, but we do not have to identify with them. In practice, mindfulness allows us to observe our thoughts objectively. When a negative or intrusive thought arises, instead of automatically reacting to it or believing it, we can simply acknowledge it. "Oh, here is a thought. I notice it, but I do not need to engage with it." This shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. We begin to see that thoughts are just mental patterns, sometimes helpful, but often not. They do not have to dictate our emotions or actions. The challenge lies in how we practice mindfulness. It is easy to get distracted by the constant flow of thoughts, and we may find ourselves caught up in them without even realizing it. One way to strengthen our mindfulness practice is through meditation. Meditation creates an environment where we can observe our thoughts in a quiet, focused way, without the distractions of daily life. This practice helps us build awareness of the mind's tendencies and cultivates the ability to let go of unhelpful thoughts. By practicing mindfulness, we can start to see our thoughts for what they are: passing mental phenomena that do not define our reality. We can begin to make a conscious choice not to invest our energy into thoughts that do not serve us, creating more peace and clarity in our minds. This practice of detachment is not about rejecting or suppressing our thoughts, but about recognizing their impermanence and choosing not to let them control us. Through mindfulness, we gain the power to separate what is real from what is not, leading to greater freedom and inner peace. Section 2. How to identify unreal thoughts. 2.1 Distinguishing between helpful and harmful thoughts. Not every thought that crosses our mind is harmful, but it's important to recognize that there are certain patterns of thinking that can lead us into negative cycles. One of the most common and impactful patterns is the intrusive thought. These are uninvited, often negative thoughts that appear without warning. They may manifest in a variety of ways, such as fears about what could happen in the future, exaggerated concerns about mistakes we've made in the past, or persistent feelings of inadequacy that don't reflect our true abilities. Recognizing these thoughts early is key to preventing them from taking over. Mindfulness, the practice of being present and aware of what's happening in our minds at any given moment, helps us catch these harmful thoughts before they spiral. The first step in identifying them is noticing the emotional response they trigger. If a thought makes you feel anxious, scared, or unworthy, it's a signal that it may not be rooted in reality. By paying attention to the emotions tied to our thoughts, we can better discern whether a thought is helpful or harmful. Buddhism teaches us that thoughts are not who we are. They are simply passing phenomena that come and go. The key is learning not to identify with them. When we start to notice that we are thinking harmful thoughts, we can practice non-attachment, letting go of those thoughts without engaging with them emotionally. This practice helps us create space between ourselves and the thoughts, allowing us to maintain a clear and calm mind. A useful technique is labeling the thoughts as they arise. For instance, you might recognize a thought as fear, doubt, or regret, and mentally note it as something separate from your true self. This simple act of labeling helps us create distance from the thought, making it easier to detach and move on without being consumed by it. 2.2 The role of cognitive distortions. Another powerful way to identify unreal thoughts is by recognizing the cognitive distortions we often engage in. These are habitual patterns of thinking that skew our perception of reality and lead us to interpret situations in a negative or exaggerated light. For example, one common distortion is catastrophizing, where we imagine the worst possible outcome in any situation, even if it's unlikely to occur. If you make a small mistake at work, you might think, "I'm going to be fired, and then I won't be able to support myself." This type of thinking amplifies the anxiety and fear, making situations seem much worse than they really are. Another distortion is overgeneralizing, which occurs when we take one negative experience and assume it reflects the entirety of our lives. If you experience a failed relationship, you might think, "I'll never find love," or "I'm not capable of having a successful relationship." This type of thinking dismisses all of the positive aspects of our lives and experiences, reducing our ability to see the bigger picture. Buddhism encourages us to examine these distortions and to question their validity. When we catch ourselves engaging in these thought patterns, we can pause and ask, "Is this true? Is this the reality of the situation? Or am I simply allowing my mind to exaggerate it?" By challenging these distorted thoughts, we begin to weaken their power over us. We start to see things as they truly are, not as our minds may distort them. Mindfulness practice can be especially helpful here as it encourages us to observe our thoughts without judgment. When we approach our thoughts with curiosity and openness, we can begin to uncover the truth behind them. Are we truly doomed because of one failure? Or are we simply learning and growing from that experience? Are we in danger of a catastrophe? Or are we reacting to a situation with excessive worry? Through mindfulness, we can begin to identify these distortions and replace them with more balanced, rational thoughts. A practical approach to counteract cognitive distortions is to use thought-challenging techniques. For example, when you notice yourself catastrophizing, ask yourself, "What evidence do I have that this worst-case scenario is likely to happen?" When you find yourself overgeneralizing, remind yourself of other instances where things went well, and consider how these experiences contribute to a more realistic view of yourself and your life. By regularly questioning the validity of our thoughts and recognizing the distortions we engage in, we can learn to better identify the unreal thoughts that hinder our well-being. The more we practice mindfulness and critical thinking, the more we can cultivate a clear, grounded mind that is not swayed by unhelpful or distorted thinking patterns. Section 3. The impact of unreal thoughts on our lives. 3.1 How unreal thoughts affect our emotions and actions. Unreal thoughts, while often fleeting and untrue, can have a significant impact on our emotional well-being and behavior. When we mistakenly believe these thoughts, we create emotional reactions that can be intense and overwhelming. For example, if we constantly worry about an event in the future, even though there's no evidence to suggest it's likely to happen, we may feel anxiety, fear, or unease. These emotions arise not from the event itself, but from the distorted thoughts we hold about it. Such emotional reactions are powerful. They can affect our mood, decision-making, and overall outlook on life. Unreal thoughts often lead to negative self-perceptions, such as feelings of inadequacy or worthlessness. When we think, "I'm not good enough," or "I will never succeed," we may start to believe these thoughts, internalizing them and allowing them to shape how we view ourselves. This can result in depression, a sense of helplessness, and a loss of motivation. Buddhism encourages us to cultivate awareness and detachment from our thoughts, recognizing that they are not inherently true or real. Through mindfulness, we learn not to immediately react to these thoughts with fear, anger, or frustration. Instead of letting the thought control us, we can choose to simply observe it as it arises and let it pass. This practice can reduce the emotional intensity of unreal thoughts and help us maintain a sense of calm and clarity. When we detach from our emotional reactions, we can begin to focus on what truly matters: our values, relationships, and goals. By stopping the cycle of automatic emotional responses, we allow ourselves to create a mental space where we can choose to respond thoughtfully and mindfully rather than react impulsively. 3.2 The cycle of negative thinking. The more we engage with unreal thoughts, the more they start to feel real. This is the core of the cycle of negative thinking. Initially, a thought may seem insignificant, but if we keep focusing on it, questioning it, and allowing it to influence our emotions, it can quickly spiral out of control. What begins as a small worry can turn into overwhelming anxiety or self-doubt. The more we engage with these thoughts, the more they start to define our reality, even though they are not based on facts. This cycle of negative thinking can lead to stress, burnout, and even physical symptoms. For instance, when we are caught in a pattern of anxious thinking, our bodies can respond with tension, elevated heart rates, and difficulty sleeping. Insomnia and fatigue are common side effects of a mind consumed by worries, fears, or exaggerated thoughts. The mental strain of these cycles can eventually affect our physical health, creating a vicious loop. Buddhism offers a powerful way to break free from this cycle. The practice of mindfulness and non-attachment helps us recognize when we are becoming entangled in negative thoughts. Instead of identifying with the thought and allowing it to dictate our feelings and behaviors, we learn to step back and observe it from a distance. This allows us to break the automatic reaction to the thought and shift our attention to the present moment. Through mindfulness, we can also recognize the impermanence of our thoughts. Just as clouds pass across the sky, so too do thoughts pass through our minds. They are not permanent, and we have the power to let them go. The more we practice non-attachment, the less hold these thoughts have over us. Over time, we can train our minds to recognize when we are caught in a negative cycle and gently guide ourselves back to a place of peace and balance. Buddhism teaches that by letting go of attachment to our thoughts, we free ourselves from the suffering they cause. The key to breaking the cycle is awareness, recognizing when we are trapped in unreal thoughts and choosing to disengage from them. This practice is not about suppressing or ignoring our thoughts but about seeing them for what they truly are: temporary and fleeting mental events that do not need to dictate our emotional state or actions. By breaking the cycle of negative thinking, we can regain control over our mental and emotional lives. We can choose to cultivate positive thoughts, focus on what we can control, and create a sense of peace that is not dependent on the fluctuations of our minds. Section 4. Practical Buddhist Techniques to Manage Unreal Thoughts. 4.1 The Practice of Meditation. Meditation is a foundational practice in Buddhism, often described as a powerful tool to calm the mind and break free from the grip of negative thoughts. By incorporating meditation into our daily routine, we can learn to observe our thoughts without becoming entangled in them. This process helps us create a healthy distance between ourselves and the mental narratives that we may unconsciously attach to. In meditation, we aim to simply observe the thoughts as they arise, acknowledging them without judgment. The goal is not to stop thoughts from coming, but to observe them impartially, as if we were watching clouds drift by in the sky. As we sit in stillness, we begin to realize that thoughts are just passing phenomena, temporary and often transient. Through this practice, we start to see that we are not defined by our thoughts, rather, we are the observer of them. One simple meditation technique to help with this process is mindfulness of breathing. To begin, find a quiet space, sit comfortably, and close your eyes. Focus your attention on your breath as it enters and leaves your body. If your mind begins to wander, gently bring your attention back to the sensation of the breath. Each time a thought arises, notice it, but don't engage with it. Simply acknowledge it and return your focus to the breath. Over time, this practice helps you to become more aware of when you are lost in thought and trains you to detach from those thoughts without judgment. Meditation trains us to be present, helping us reduce the power of unreal thoughts. It allows us to develop greater awareness and clarity, which is essential for recognizing when our minds are playing tricks on us. By observing our thoughts, we learn not to react impulsively but to respond with mindfulness and wisdom. 4.2 The Art of Letting Go. Buddhism teaches that attachment is one of the primary sources of suffering. We often form attachments not only to material things but also to our thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. When we become attached to negative thoughts, such as fear, doubt, or anger, we allow them to control us, leading to unnecessary suffering. The key to freeing ourselves from this suffering is the practice of letting go. Letting go does not mean suppressing or ignoring our thoughts. Instead, it means acknowledging them without clinging to them, recognizing them as passing mental events rather than permanent truths. It's about releasing the grip that our thoughts have over us, allowing them to flow freely without becoming entangled in them. In Buddhism, this is often referred to as non-attachment, which is the practice of not identifying with the thoughts or emotions we experience. One effective method for practicing letting go is to develop an awareness of when we are holding onto thoughts. For example, if a thought arises that causes us distress, instead of following it down the rabbit hole, we can pause and observe. This is just a thought. It is not me, nor is it my truth. When we recognize that thoughts do not define us, we can begin to let them pass without attaching meaning or emotion to them. Another technique to facilitate letting go is the practice of releasing the breath. As you inhale, imagine that you are gathering the negative or distressing thought. As you exhale, release it completely, visualizing the thought dissipating into the air. This simple practice can help us physically and mentally release the thoughts that no longer serve us, creating space for peace and clarity. The more we practice letting go, the easier it becomes. With time, we learn to cultivate a mind that is not weighed down by unnecessary attachments to thoughts, emotions, or expectations. This lightness of being leads to a greater sense of freedom, and it's through this practice that we can experience true peace. 4.3 Developing a Growth Mindset. Buddhism encourages us to view life as a process of continual growth. Our thoughts, like ourselves, are not fixed or permanent. Just as we change and evolve throughout our lives, so too can our thoughts. By adopting a growth mindset, we begin to see that challenges, setbacks, and even unreal thoughts are opportunities for growth rather than sources of limitation. A growth mindset is the belief that we can learn, adapt, and improve over time. Instead of viewing difficulties as insurmountable obstacles, we see them as chances to learn and expand our understanding. This mindset shifts our approach to life. Challenges become stepping stones on the path of personal development rather than signs of failure. This is an essential Buddhist perspective, as it aligns with the teachings of impermanence and interconnectedness, recognizing that all things, including our thoughts, are constantly changing. To develop a growth mindset, it's important to reframe negative or limiting thoughts. For example, if a thought arises such as, "I am not capable of achieving my goals," a growth mindset would encourage us to reframe it to, "I may not have succeeded yet, but I can learn from my mistakes and try again." Reframing allows us to see our potential for growth, even in the face of adversity. It opens up the possibility for change and progress, which is an empowering perspective that aligns with Buddhist principles of transformation. Buddhism also teaches us the importance of self-compassion in the process of growth. We are often our harshest critics, and this can prevent us from making the changes necessary for growth. Practicing kindness towards ourselves, especially when we fail or encounter difficulties, allows us to embrace challenges with an open heart. Self-compassion helps us shift from a fixed mindset, where we believe our abilities and thoughts are set in stone, to a more fluid, expansive mindset that invites improvement and transformation. By incorporating a growth mindset into our daily lives, we can begin to see unreal thoughts as opportunities to learn and evolve. Rather than as fixed obstacles, we become more resilient in the face of challenges, and more empowered to let go of limiting beliefs. As we continue to practice these Buddhist techniques, we can cultivate a mind that is open, adaptable, and ready to grow with every experience life offers. Section 5. Real-life applications of Buddhist insights on thoughts. 5.1 Overcoming self-doubt and anxiety. Self-doubt is something we all encounter at some point in our lives. It's that inner voice that tells us we're not good enough, that we'll never succeed, or that we're bound to fail. However, what if I told you that this voice, these feelings of inadequacy, often arise from thoughts that are not real? These thoughts may seem real in the moment, but they are not grounded in truth. They are products of our mind, often exaggerated and distorted. In my own journey, I have struggled with self-doubt on many occasions. I've faced moments where I questioned my worth, my abilities, and my decisions. But what I've learned through practicing Buddhist insights is that these feelings are fleeting and impermanent. Just because we think something doesn't make it true. Our thoughts are like clouds passing in the sky, temporary and often ungrounded in reality. One technique I've found particularly helpful is to observe the thought without judgment. When a negative thought like, "I'm not good enough," arises, instead of engaging with it or spiraling into it, I simply observe it. I acknowledge it as a thought, not a fact. By recognizing that it's just a passing mental event, I create distance from it, which helps reduce its power over me. Buddhist teachings encourage us to embrace impermanence, to understand that nothing lasts forever, including our thoughts. The more we remind ourselves that self-doubt is transient, the less power it has over us. We begin to see it for what it truly is, a passing cloud, not the reality of who we are. The practice of mindfulness, focusing on the present moment, also plays a crucial role in overcoming self-doubt. By anchoring myself in the here and now, I stop worrying about past mistakes or future uncertainties. I realize that my true value comes from being present, not from any fleeting thought. Overcoming anxiety also comes from practicing non-attachment. Anxiety often arises from our attachment to a particular outcome or fear of the unknown. By practicing non-attachment, we stop holding on to outcomes and simply allow ourselves to experience the present moment, free of unnecessary worry. This doesn't mean we avoid planning or preparing, but it means we let go of the need for control and accept that we cannot predict the future. 5.2 Applying Buddhist Wisdom in Daily Life. Buddhism isn't just about retreating to a quiet space to meditate. It's about applying its wisdom in our everyday lives. The teachings can be incredibly practical, offering tools to help us navigate the challenges we face at work, in relationships, and within ourselves. For example, at work, it's easy to fall into patterns of stress, perfectionism, or overwork, but by applying Buddhist principles, we can shift our perspective. Mindfulness allows us to be fully present in each task, helping us focus on what's in front of us instead of worrying about deadlines or making mistakes. When a stressful thought arises, such as, "I'm not doing enough," or "I won't be able to meet expectations," I remind myself that these thoughts are not the truth. They are just projections of the mind. Instead of reacting, I pause, breathe, and refocus on the task at hand. In relationships, non-attachment plays a vital role. We often attach ourselves to certain outcomes in our relationships, expecting them to meet our desires or ideals. When things don't go as planned, we can feel frustrated, hurt, or resentful. However, Buddhist wisdom teaches us that attachment to specific outcomes leads to suffering. Instead of holding on to unrealistic expectations, we learn to accept others as they are and appreciate them in the present moment. When conflicts arise, we approach them with mindfulness and compassion, remembering that everyone, including ourselves, is on a journey of growth. In personal struggles, whether it's dealing with a difficult situation or facing our own internal challenges, Buddhist teachings on impermanence remind us that everything is temporary. Difficult emotions, such as anger, frustration, or sadness, are not permanent states, they are transient. Understanding this helps us approach these emotions with a sense of acceptance rather than resistance. We no longer fear difficult feelings, knowing that they will eventually pass. Buddhism also encourages us to view life as a learning process. Every experience, whether positive or negative, offers an opportunity to grow. By adopting a mindset of curiosity and openness, we can transform challenges into lessons. This shift in perspective allows us to approach each day with a sense of equanimity, understanding that life will always present us with new opportunities to practice mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. In summary, Buddhist wisdom offers practical tools that can make a significant difference in our daily lives. By applying mindfulness, non-attachment, and an understanding of impermanence, we can navigate our challenges with a calm and balanced mind. These teachings empower us to respond to life's ups and downs not with resistance or fear, but with acceptance and wisdom. The more we integrate these practices into our lives, the more we cultivate a sense of peace and clarity that remains steady, no matter what comes our way. Section 6. Conclusion. Empowering yourself to manage unreal thoughts. 6.1 The Journey of Self-Awareness. Managing our thoughts is undoubtedly a journey, and it's one that requires patience, persistence, and self-compassion. The path to recognizing and letting go of unreal thoughts can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. By incorporating the right mindset, tools, and Buddhist teachings, we can start to understand the impermanent nature of our thoughts and learn to detach from the ones that no longer serve us. The process of self-awareness involves creating the space to simply observe our thoughts without attaching to them. Through practices like mindfulness and meditation, we train ourselves to be more aware of when we are engaging with thoughts that are not based on reality. This awareness allows us to gently release the hold that these thoughts have on us, reducing their power and influence over our lives. By letting go of these unreal thoughts, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. We stop allowing our minds to create stories and scenarios that cause anxiety, doubt, and fear in their place. We make room for greater peace, clarity, and a deeper understanding of our true nature. The more we practice this awareness, the easier it becomes to navigate through life's challenges without being overwhelmed by negative thought patterns. 6.2 Your path to inner peace. As you move forward on your journey, it's important to remember one key truth: you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are temporary, and they do not define who you are. You are the observer of these thoughts, the one who has the ability to observe them and choose whether to engage or let them pass. By applying the teachings of Buddhism, mindfulness, meditation, and non-attachment, you can regain control over your mind and emotions. This practice empowers you to make conscious decisions about which thoughts to nurture and which to release. As you become more attuned to your true nature, you can live with greater harmony and inner peace. The path to inner peace is not about escaping from reality but about embracing it fully. With all its challenges and beauty, it's about recognizing that peace is not something to be found outside of you but something that resides within. Through mindfulness, you can connect to this inner peace and cultivate a life filled with clarity, joy, and a sense of purpose. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of unreal thoughts. I hope the insights shared here can help you along your journey to peace. Please share your experiences or questions in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Let's continue this conversation and support each other as we grow in mindfulness, wisdom, and compassion. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Buddhist philosophy, meditation, and how to live a life more in tune with your true self.